The elevator doors slid shut at 11:58 p.m., sealing Bridget Crawford inside with a man whose eyes gleamed like polished silver in the fluorescent light, and she knew with absolute certainty that she had just made the last mistake of her life. She'd been working late again. The only soul left in the building, or so she thought. The marketing firm where she worked as a junior creative director demanded brutal hours, but tonight she'd finally cracked the campaign that had been eluding her for weeks. Triumphant and exhausted, she'd gathered her laptop and coat, pressed the button for the ground floor, and stepped into the elevator just as he appeared from nowhere, moving with impossible speed to slip inside before the doors could close. He was beautiful in a way that made her throat tighten. Tall, easily 6'3", with bone-white hair that fell past his shoulders in a cascade of silk. His skin was alabaster, so pale it seemed to glow, and his features were sharp and aristocratic, high cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips that looked carved from marble. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than her car, perfectly tailored to his lean, powerful frame. But it was his eyes that held her frozen. They were silver, truly silver, with no white, no iris, just pools of liquid mercury that reflected her terrified face back at her. "Good evening," he said, and his voice was like velvet dragged across gravel, cultured and ancient. Bridget pressed herself against the elevator wall, clutching her laptop bag like a shield. "Hi," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. The elevator began to descend. 23rd floor, 22nd, 21st. He didn't look away from her, didn't blink. His nostrils flared slightly, and she saw his jaw tighten, saw the muscles in his neck cord with sudden tension. Between the 19th and 18th floors, the elevator shuddered. The lights flickered once, twice, then died completely, plunging them into absolute darkness. The elevator lurched to a violent stop that sent Bridget stumbling forward. She would have fallen if hands hadn't caught her cold hands, inhumanly strong, that gripped her upper arms and steadied her with effortless strength. She gasped, jerking back, but he held her gently, just long enough to ensure she had her balance, then released her immediately. Emergency lighting kicked in, dim red bulbs that cast everything in crimson shadow. Bridget could see him again now, standing with rigid stillness in the corner opposite her, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "What happened?" she asked, reaching for the emergency call button. "Don't." His voice was strained, sharp. "Don't move, don't come closer." She froze, her finger hovering over the button. "Why not?" He closed his eyes and she saw him take a long, shuddering breath. When he opened them again, she saw something that made her blood run cold. His teeth. His canines had lengthened, sharp and white and predatory. "Oh God," she whispered. "I need you to listen to me very carefully," he said, each word seeming to cost him tremendous effort. "My name is Lucien Drakovar. I am the Vampire King of the Eastern Territories. I have not fed in 6 days, which for a vampire of my age and power is dangerous, catastrophically dangerous. And now I am trapped in a very small space with a human woman whose blood smells like heaven and starlight." Bridget's heart hammered against her ribs. "Vampire? You're a vampire, yes. And you're starving, yes." His voice was hoarse. "I came to this building to meet with the CEO, who is a blood supplier for our kind, a business arrangement. But he postponed at the last moment. I should have fed before coming. I thought I could manage. I was wrong." She should have been screaming, should have been pressing that emergency button, pounding on the doors, doing anything to get away from him. But something in his voice, in the way he was holding himself so carefully still, told her that he was fighting himself with every ounce of his considerable will. "How long can you hold out?" she asked quietly. He laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "I don't know, minutes. Perhaps an hour if I'm fortunate. But the confined space, your proximity, your fear, it's making you smell even more potent. Fear releases chemicals in the blood that are intoxicating to my kind. So if I stop being afraid, it might help." His silver eyes snapped to hers, and she saw surprise flash across his pale features. "You're serious? You haven't attacked me yet. You're clearly trying not to. So I'm going to try to help." She set down her laptop bag slowly, then pressed the emergency call button. Nothing happened. She tried again. Still nothing. "The power's completely out," Lucien said. "We're between floors. The emergency system should kick in eventually, but it could take hours. This building is old and the overnight security team is minimal." Bridget pulled out her phone. No signal. Of course not. They were in an elevator shaft in the middle of a high rise. She looked at him, really looked at him. He was trembling now, fine tremors running through his powerful frame. His hands were gripping the railing behind him so hard the metal was groaning. "Tell me about yourself," she said suddenly. He blinked. "What? Distract yourself. Tell me about you. How old are you? Where are you from? Do you really live in a castle?" Despite everything, the corner of his mouth twitched. "I am 1,147 years old. I was born in the Carpathian Mountains in what is now Romania. And yes, I live in a castle, though it's hidden beneath the city now. The modern world built over it. 1,000 years, Bridget breathed. What was it like? I mean, what was the world like when you were human? Brutal, short, filled with violence and disease and superstition. That was usually right. He was still trembling, but he was talking, and that seemed to help. I was a warlord's son. I died in battle at 23. A vampire found me on the field, saw something in me worth saving, or perhaps she was simply bored. Immortality does that sometimes. She turned you? Yes, Katerina. She was 1,000 years old even then, ancient and powerful and mad. She taught me what I was, gave me power, then abandoned me a century later when I bored her in turn. His voice was steadier now, though his eyes never left Bridget. I built an empire in the shadows, claimed territory, fought wars against other vampire lords. I became king through blood and strategy and sheer stubborn will. Bridget slid down the wall to sit on the floor, keeping her distance but trying to appear calm. Do you have a family? I mean, other vampires? I have a court, lords and ladies who serve me, territories they govern in my name. But family? He shook his head. Vampires don't bond the way humans do. We're predators, solitary by nature. We form alliances, not families. That sounds lonely. He was quiet for a long moment. It is. More than you could possibly understand. Try me, Bridget said softly. I'm 28 years old. I work 80 hours a week at a job that's slowly eating my soul. I haven't been on a date in 2 years. My parents died in a car accident when I was 19. I have a sister I haven't spoken to in 5 years because we can't be in the same room without fighting. I go home every night to an empty apartment and fall asleep watching Netflix because the silence is too loud. So yeah, I think I understand lonely. Lucien stared at her with those impossible silver eyes, and she saw something shift in his expression. Something that looked almost like recognition. Bridget Crawford, he said quietly, reading her name from the ID badge still clipped to her blazer. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Screaming, hysteria, you should be terrified of me. I am terrified of you, she admitted. My heart's going about 200 beats per minute right now. But you're clearly trying not to hurt me, so I'm trying to help you not hurt me. Seems like we're on the same team here. He laughed again, and this time it sounded more real. A practical optimist. How novel. What happens if you can't hold on, she asked, needing to know. If you lose control? His expression darkened. I would drain you completely. You would die in minutes, possibly seconds. And when I came back to myself, I would have to live with the knowledge that I killed an innocent woman. A woman who tried to help me. Would you remember? Remember me? Every detail. Every word we've spoken. The scent of your perfume, jasmine, and something citrus. The way you bite your lower lip when you're thinking. The kindness in your eyes. I would remember all of it for the rest of my immortal existence. Bridget hugged her knees to her chest. Then don't lose control. I'm trying. His voice was ragged. God, I'm trying. But you have no idea how you smell, how you look. Your pulse is like thunder in my ears. I can hear your heart, feel the rush of blood through your veins. Your warm life and everything I'm not, and I haven't fed in 6 days. Why haven't you fed? Don't you have people who provide for you? I do, blood suppliers. Volunteers who trade their blood for money and protection. But I was traveling. There was an incident on the border between my territory and the Western Kingdom. A young vampire killed a human, broke our most sacred law. I had to personally execute him and deliver his ashes to his maker. It took longer than expected. I should have fed before I left. Pride made me think I could wait. So your kind has laws? Rules? Strict ones. The first law. Humans are not to be killed. We can feed, but we must leave them alive and aware. We erase memories when necessary, ensure they're compensated. The alternative is exposure, and war with humanity would end us. There are billions of you and only thousands of us. Thousands? That's all? We're apex predators. We don't breed easily or often. It takes tremendous power and risk to turn a human. Most don't survive the transformation. Bridget processed this. So you're the king of thousands of vampires, you're 1,000 years old, and you're honor-bound not to kill me even though you're starving. That's an accurate summary, yes. And if someone finds us, if they get the elevator working, you'll be able to leave and feed from one of your volunteers? Yes, okay. She took a deep breath. Then we just have to wait. We can do this. He looked at her with something that might have been wonder. You're remarkable. You know that? I'm terrified and babbling to keep from having a panic attack, but thank you. You're not babbling, you're thinking, strategizing. Trying to keep us both alive. He shifted slightly, and she saw him wince. Tell me about you. Why do you work 80 hours a week at a job that's eating your soul? Because I'm good at it, Bridget said. Because they pay well. Because it's easier to pour myself into work than to deal with the fact that I don't know what I actually want from life. I got a degree in marketing because it seemed practical, got hired right out of college, climbed the ladder, and now I'm nearly 30, and I don't know if I've ever made a single choice that was actually for me and not because it was the safe, logical, expected thing to do. What would you do if you could choose anything? The question surprised her. I don't know, maybe travel? I've barely left the state. I'd like to see the world, experience things, feel alive instead of just existing. I've seen the world change a dozen times over, Lucien said. Empires rise and fall, cities built and burned and rebuilt. But I haven't truly seen it in centuries. When you're immortal, you forget to pay attention. Everything blurs together. That's incredibly sad, yes. It is. They were quiet for a moment. The red emergency lighting painted everything in shades of blood and shadow. Bridget could see the tension in Lucien's body, the way he was gripping the railing, the veins standing out in his pale hands. How are you doing? She asked quietly. I've been better. His voice was tight. Talk to me more, please. So she did. She told him about her sister Rebecca, and the fight that had driven them apart, something stupid about their parents' estate, that had really been about grief and blame, and the inability to communicate. She told him about her college years, her first terrible apartment, her first terrible boyfriend who'd cheated on her with her roommate. She told him about the campaign she'd finally cracked tonight, the one that had kept her late, the one that might finally get her the promotion she'd been chasing. And he listened, really listened, asked questions, responded with stories of his own wars he'd fought, loves he'd lost, though he claimed they weren't real love, just passion and convenience. The night he'd become king by defeating the previous ruler in single combat. We fought for 3 days straight, he said, in the catacombs beneath Prague. He was older than me, more powerful, but he'd grown lazy, complacent. I was hungry for power, driven by ambition and rage. I tore his heart from his chest and burned it while he screamed. That's horrifying, Bridget said. Yes, but it was necessary. He was a tyrant, under his rule. Our kind was reckless, drawing attention, risking exposure. I brought order, law, a code that kept us hidden and safe. So you're a good king? He considered this. I'm a necessary one. I don't know if that's the same thing. Time crawled past. Bridget's phone showed 12:47 a.m. They'd been trapped for nearly an hour. Lucien was deteriorating. She could see it now, the way his hands shook, the way his eyes kept flashing red before returning to silver, the way his breathing had become labored even though she suspected he didn't really need to breathe. Lucien, she said carefully. What can I do? Is there anything that would help? No. Yes. I don't know. He dragged a hand through his white hair, and she saw his fingers were trembling violently now. If you came closer, if you let me scent you properly, it might satisfy the hunter in me enough to hold on longer, or it might destroy the last of my control. I don't know which. Bridget stood slowly. Would it help if you fed a little? Not to kill me, just enough to take the edge off? His head snapped up, eyes wide. No, absolutely not. Why not? You said vampires feed without killing all the time. Not when they're starving. Not when they're on the edge. I wouldn't be able to stop. The moment your blood touched my tongue, I'd drain you dry. You don't know that. Yes, I do. I'm over 1,000 years old, Bridget. I know exactly what I'm capable of and what I'm not. And right now I am not capable of feeding safely from you. She believed him. The certainty in his voice, the fear beneath it, he was genuinely terrified of what he might do. Okay, she said softly. Then we keep waiting, keep talking. But he was struggling to talk now. His responses were becoming shorter, his accent thickening, his words sometimes slipping into languages she didn't recognize: Romanian, Latin, something that sounded like ancient Greek. At 1:15 a.m. he slid down the wall to the floor, his control clearly fracturing. You should try the doors, he gritted out. Pry them open, climb out. We're between floors. I'd probably fall. Better than waiting here for me to kill you. You're not going to kill me. How can you possibly know that? He looked up at her and his eyes were fully red now, glowing like embers. His fangs were long and sharp and she could see the strain in every line of his body. Because you're still telling me to run, Bridget said. Because you care more about my life than your hunger. That matters. It won't matter when I tear your throat out. She sat down against the opposite wall, maintaining the distance between them. Tell me about your castle. What's it like? He stared at her like she was insane. Then slowly he began to speak. It's vast, built into the mountain itself. Halls carved from stone, galleries filled with art I've collected over centuries, libraries that hold books in languages that no longer exist, ballrooms where we hold court, where vampire lords come to petition me, to curry favor, to plot against each other while pretending loyalty. Sounds beautiful. It's cold, empty. I walk those halls alone most nights. My court serves me out of fear and respect, not love. I have lovers occasionally, but they're transactions, power for pleasure. No one has spoken to me the way you do in more years than I can count. How do I speak to you? Like I'm a person, not a king, not a monster. Just a man trapped in an elevator who's trying very hard not to eat you." Despite everything, Bridget smiled. "You are trying very hard, I appreciate that," he laughed weakly. "Your standards are remarkably low. Or maybe you're better than you think you are." His expression softened. "You see the best in people, don't you? Even when that person is a vampire who might kill you, I try to. Life's too short for cynicism. Life's too long for optimism. But I'm starting to see the appeal." At 1:43 a.m. something changed. Lucien went very still, his head tilting. "Listen." Bridget strained her ears. At first she heard nothing, then voices. Distant, muffled, but definitely voices. "Security," Lucien breathed, finally. Hope surged in Bridget's chest. They just had to hold on a little longer. But Lucien's condition was worsening. His skin was even paler now, almost translucent, and she could see dark veins spreading beneath it. His eyes were completely red, no trace of silver remaining. He was shaking so hard his teeth were chattering, the sound sharp and predatory in the confined space. "Lucien, they're coming. Just hold on. I don't know if I can." His voice was barely human now, a guttural rasp. "Bridget, if I lose control, you need to run. The moment those doors open, you run and don't look back. I'm not leaving you like this, you don't understand. When the bloodlust takes over, I won't be me anymore. I'll be a monster, a predator. I'll kill you and anyone else in my path." The voices were getting louder. Someone was shouting instructions. She heard mechanical sounds like tools working on the elevator shaft. Lucien's hands clawed at the floor, his nails his claws clawing scratches in the metal. "Go, please. I can't hurt you, I can't." And then he was moving faster than her eyes could track, and suddenly he was right in front of her, his hand on the wall beside her head, his face inches from her throat. She could feel his breath, cold and sharp, could see the veins in his neck pulsing, could smell something like snow and metal and ancient stone. "I'm sorry," he whispered, and she heard the anguish in his voice, the absolute horror at what he was about to do. Bridget did something crazy. She reached up and touched his face, her palm against his cold cheek. "Froze, look at me," she said softly. "Lucien, look at me." Slowly, his red eyes lifted from her throat to meet hers. "You are not a monster," she said clearly. "You are a man who has fought his own nature for over an hour to keep me safe. You are a king who created laws to protect humans. You are someone who is lonely and tired and trying so hard to be good. I see you. And you can do this. Just a little longer." His hand was shaking beside her head. "I want to, God, I want to believe you." "Then believe me. I trust you. You shouldn't, maybe not, but I do." They stayed frozen like that, his face inches from hers, his body coiled with tension, her hand on his cheek. Above them the sounds of rescue were intensifying. Shouting, drilling, the shriek of metal on metal. "Tell me something," Lucien said, his voice rough. "Tell me something good, something to hold on to." "When I was little," Bridget said, keeping her voice steady, "my dad used to take me to the park every Sunday morning. We'd get coffee, he'd get coffee. I'd get hot chocolate and we'd sit on this bench by the pond and feed the ducks. He'd tell me stories about his week, treat me like I was important, like my opinions mattered. I was 8 years old and he'd ask me for advice on work problems. Made me feel special." "You are special," Lucien murmured. "He died before I could thank him. Before I could tell him that those mornings meant everything to me, that they made me who I am." He knew. Parents always know. There was a grinding sound above them, then a loud crack. The elevator shuddered. Voices called out, "Hello? Is anyone in there? We're getting you out." "Yes," Bridget called back. "2 people, we're okay." She felt Lucien tense against her. "When they open those doors, I'm going to run. I won't be able to control myself around more humans, more heartbeats, more blood. I need you to stay here. Stay safe. Don't follow me. Where will you go?" "My car. It's in the parking garage. I have blood stores there. Emergency supplies. I'll feed and regain control. And then?" He pulled back slightly, meeting her eyes. The red was starting to fade, hints of silver breaking through. "And then I find you again, if you'll allow it. Because I've lived for over 1,000 years and I've never met anyone like you, Bridget Crawford. And I don't think I can walk away and forget you." Her heart hammered in her chest. "I'd like that." Above them, the elevator doors were being pried apart. Light flooded in, real light, bright and harsh after the red gloom. Voices called down. Lucien moved so fast he was a blur. One moment he was beside her, the next he was leaping up through the opening, his powerful body propelling him 15 feet straight up with inhuman strength. She heard shouts of alarm, rapid footsteps, then silence. Miss, are you all right?" A security guard's face appeared in the opening, a ladder being lowered down. "I'm fine," Bridget said, her legs shaking as she climbed. "I'm okay." They pulled her out onto the 18th floor landing. There were 3 security guards, all looking shaken. "What happened to the other guy?" one asked. He just ran past us like a bat out of hell. Emergency, Bridget said. He had to go, medical issue. They walked her down to the ground floor, asking questions she barely heard. Her mind was spinning. Had that really happened? Had she really spent over an hour trapped in an elevator with a vampire king who was fighting not to kill her? The security guards wanted her to file a report, get checked by paramedics. She went through the motions numbly. It was past 3 in the morning by the time they finally let her leave. She stepped out into the cool night air and stood on the sidewalk looking up at the building. Her car was in the lot across the street. She should go home, sleep, process what had happened. Instead, she found herself walking toward the parking garage. She found him on the 3rd level, leaning against a sleek black car that probably cost more than her annual salary. He was drinking from what looked like a medical blood bag, and his color was already returning, his skin less translucent, the dark veins fading. He saw her and froze, lowering the bag. His eyes were silver again, bright and clear. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "Probably not. I'm still dangerous, still not fully in control. You seem better." He finished the blood bag and tossed it into the car, then pulled out another one. "This is my 4th. I need at least 6 to be safe. Maybe 8. Bridget leaned against the concrete pillar a few feet away. "Can I wait with you?" "Why would you want to?" "Because you said you'd find me again. I'm just speeding up the process." He studied her for a long moment, then smiled. Actually smiled, and it transformed his face from coldly beautiful to devastating. "You're either the bravest woman I've ever met or the most foolish. Can't I be both?" He laughed, and the sound was warm and genuine. "Yes, I suppose you can." She watched him drink 2 more bags, his movements becoming more fluid, more graceful, the tension bleeding out of his frame. By the 6th bag, he looked completely different, still pale and striking, but vital now, powerful, in control. "Better?" she asked. "Much. Thank you for waiting. And thank you for what you did in there. You saved my life. Pretty sure you saved mine. By not eating me. The bar for heroism in my world is remarkably low." He walked toward her slowly, giving her time to move away if she wanted. She didn't. "I meant what I said. I want to see you again. Get to know you. If you're willing, you're a vampire king. I'm a marketing executive. How would that even work? I don't know, but I'd like to find out." He reached out slowly and touched her hand. His fingers were cool, but no longer cold, strong, and elegant. "I've spent 1,000 years telling myself I was content with loneliness. That connection was a weakness I couldn't afford. But tonight, talking to you, being seen by you, it woke something in me I thought had died centuries ago." Bridget's breath caught. What did it wake? Hope. The possibility that maybe immortality doesn't have to be an endless gray stretch of nothing. That maybe there's something worth living for beyond duty and power. She turned her hand over, lacing her fingers through his. "That's a lot of pressure to put on a girl you met in an elevator." "Is it too much?" she considered. This was insane. He was a vampire. A king of vampires. A creature who drank blood and could kill her with a thought. By all logic, she should walk away, chalk this up to the strangest night of her life, and never look back. But when she looked at him, she didn't see a monster. She saw loneliness that mirrored her own. She saw someone who'd fought himself to bleeding to keep her safe. She saw possibility. "No," she said quietly. "It's not too much, but we need to establish some ground rules." His smile widened. Such as you can't use vampire mind control or whatever on me. I need to know my choices are my own. I would never. You have my word, and you have to tell me the truth. About what you are, what your world is like, what being with you would mean. No secrets, agreed. Though I should warn you, my world is dangerous. There are those who would see any human I cared about as a weakness to exploit. Then we'll be careful. What else? He stepped closer, his free hand coming up to cup her cheek. You should know that vampires mate for life. If this becomes what I think it could become, if we truly bond, I will be yours for eternity. Possessive, protective, utterly devoted. I won't be able to help it. It's my nature. Her heart was racing again, but not with fear. And what if I'm not immortal? What happens when I age and die? Pain flickered across his face. I don't know, that's a bridge we'd have to cross. But there are options. The turning is dangerous, but possible. Or we simply make the most of whatever time we have. You'd do that, knowing I'd die eventually? Bridget, I've lived for over a millennium. Most of it has been meaningless. If I could have 50 years with you, truly with you, it would be worth more than all the centuries before. She was crying now, she realized, tears streaming down her face. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. He brushed her tears away with his thumb. I'm remarkably out of practice at romance. Fair warning. I think you're doing fine. May I kiss you? The question was formal, old-fashioned, perfectly him. She nodded. He leaned down slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was soft at first, almost hesitant, like he was afraid she might break. She pressed closer, her hands coming up to his shoulders, and he made a sound low in his throat and deepened the kiss. He tasted like metal and snow and something indefinably other, but his mouth was warm from the blood he'd drunk, and the way he held her like she was precious, like she was everything, made her dizzy. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, well, she was breathing hard. She wasn't sure he actually needed to breathe. He rested his forehead against hers. "Come home with me," he said quietly. "Not for anything except conversation. I want to show you my world. If you hate it, I'll bring you back, no questions asked. Your castle under the city? Yes. I promise you'll be safe. You have my word as king, and my word as the man who is falling impossibly, illogically in love with you." Bridget knew she should be cautious, should take time to think this through, should probably see a therapist about the fact that she was considering going home with a vampire. But she'd spent 28 years being careful, being logical, playing it safe. And where had it gotten her? Lonely nights and an empty apartment and a life that felt like it was happening to someone else. "Okay," she said. "Show me your world." His smile could have lit up the night. They drove through the city in his expensive car, and he told her about the vampire courts hidden beneath the modern world. How they'd adapted to technology, using it to protect their secrecy. How they had networks of human servants, willing partners who were paid well and protected fiercely. How the old ways were fading but not gone, honor and tradition still binding his kind. The entrance to his castle was through a parking garage that looked utterly ordinary. But Lucien pressed his hand to what looked like a concrete wall, and it slid open, revealing a tunnel carved into living stone. They descended in another elevator. Bridget couldn't help laughing at the irony. But this one was ornate, all carved wood and brass, clearly ancient but maintained perfectly. "Welcome," Lucien said as the doors opened, "to the court of the Eastern Territories." Bridget stepped out and gasped. It was magnificent. Soaring ceilings carved with intricate designs, lit by chandeliers that sparkled like captured stars. The walls were stone, but hung with tapestries and paintings, some of which she recognized from art history classes. The floors were polished marble, covered in places with rugs that looked impossibly old and valuable. "This is incredible," she breathed. "This is the public entrance. Come, I'll show you my private chambers." He led her through halls that seemed to go on forever, past doors and galleries and courtyards open to underground grottos where water fell from somewhere high above. She saw other vampires, all pale and beautiful and deadly, who bowed to Lucien as he passed. They stared at her with open curiosity, and in some cases hunger that made her skin prickle. "They won't harm you," Lucien said quietly. "You're under my protection. They'd have to go through me to touch you, and no one is that foolish." His chambers were at the heart of the castle, behind doors carved with dragons and crowned figures. Inside was a space that managed to be both medieval and modern, ancient stone walls, but contemporary furniture, a massive fireplace, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and windows that looked out onto more underground spaces. Gardens that somehow thrived without sunlight. "Make yourself comfortable," Lucien said, gesturing to a couch that looked sinfully soft. "Would you like something to drink? I have human food and beverages. I keep them for mortal guests." "Guests plural? Should I be jealous?" He smiled. "Business associates, suppliers, the occasional human dignitary who learns our secret. You're the first person I've brought to my private chambers in over a century." "Why me?" He sat beside her, close but not touching. "Because you saw me, not the king, not the monster. Me. And because when I thought I was going to kill you, you touched my face and told me I was good. No one has called me good in a very long time." Bridget took his hand. "What happens now? Now we talk. I answer your questions. You decide if this is something you can handle. And if it is, we figure out what this becomes. Together." So they talked. For hours. He answered every question she asked about feeding. He drank exclusively from willing donors and blood banks. About sunlight, fatal after prolonged exposure, but he could manage a few minutes with protection. About aging, he'd been 23 when turned, would look 23 forever. About the vampire world, complex, political, occasionally violent but governed by strict laws. She asked about his past lovers. He was honest. There had been many, some vampire, some human, none who meant what she was beginning to mean. Physical comfort, strategic alliances, ways to pass the endless years, but never connection, never this. She told him about her life, her dreams, her fears. About Rebecca, and how she missed her sister but didn't know how to bridge the gap. About her job, and how success felt hollow. About how she'd always felt like she was waiting for her real life to start. "Maybe it's starting now," Lucien said softly. The sky was lightening above ground by the time they finished talking. Lucien showed her to a guest room, sumptuous and beautiful, with a massive bed and an attached bathroom that had both a modern shower and an ancient-looking bathing pool. "Sleep," he said. "I'll have someone bring you breakfast, and when you wake, if you still want me, I'll be here." "Where will you be?" "My chambers are just down the hall. But I need to sleep as well. Daylight is coming, and while we don't die in our sleep like the legends say, we do become dormant, vulnerable. I'll wake at sunset." She nodded, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had sustained her was crashing. "Lucien?" "Yes?" "Thank you for fighting so hard not to hurt me, for showing me this, for being honest." He stepped close and kissed her forehead. "Thank you for giving an old monster a reason to hope." Bridget slept until early afternoon, waking in the massive bed feeling oddly rested despite everything. A vampire servant, a woman with kind eyes who introduced herself as Mira, brought her breakfast and fresh clothes. "Lord Lucien had these brought from a boutique," Mira explained. "He guessed your size. If they don't fit, I can have others brought." The clothes fit perfectly: soft jeans, a cashmere sweater, comfortable boots. How had he known her exact size? "He's observant," Mira said, seeing her expression. "Especially when he cares about someone." "Does he care about me, I mean?" Mira smiled. "I've served in this court for 30 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. Like your sunlight, and he's been living in darkness." Bridget explored the castle while she waited for sunset. Mira accompanied her, showing her libraries and galleries, gardens and halls. She met other members of the court, vampires who regarded her with curiosity and a wariness that made sense. She was human, an outsider, and she clearly had their king's attention. One vampire in particular, a beautiful woman with white hair braided with silver, stopped her in a gallery. "You're the human from the elevator," she said, "not a question." "Yes, I'm Bridget. I am Seraphine, Lady of the Northern Territories, one of Lucien's oldest allies. Walk with me." It wasn't a request. Bridget followed her to a courtyard where a fountain played, the water somehow catching light that didn't exist. "He's different," Seraphine said. "Since last night. There's a light in him I haven't seen in centuries." "You did that." "I didn't do anything. You showed him kindness when he was at his most monstrous. You saw past what he is to who he is. That's no small thing." She turned to face Bridget fully. "But you need to understand what you're getting into. Lucien is king. He has enemies, vampires who want his power, humans who hunt our kind. If they discover you matter to him, they will use you against him. They will hurt you to hurt him. He warned me about that." "Did he tell you about the last human he cared for?" 300 years ago, a woman named Elena. She was a merchant's daughter. He met her at a masquerade, fell in love with her humanity, her joy. He courted her for months, kept her secret, protected her, or so he thought. Seraphine's expression darkened. A rival vampire discovered her, kidnapped her, sent Lucien her heart in a box. Bridget felt sick. Oh God, he slaughtered every vampire involved. Started a war that lasted 50 years and decimated half the courts in Europe. The bloodshed was catastrophic, and when it was over he swore he'd never care for a human again. He's kept that vow for 3 centuries, until you. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know what you're risking, and what he's risking for you. If you're not serious about this, if you're going to walk away, do it now. Before he's in too deep. Before history repeats itself. Bridget met the ancient vampire's gaze steadily. "I'm serious, and I'm not Elena. I won't be a victim. If there are risks, we'll face them together." Seraphine studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Good, he deserves happiness. Even if I think he's a fool for seeking it with a mortal." She swept away, leaving Bridget alone by the fountain. Sunset came, and Lucien found her in the library, curled up in a chair reading a book about vampire history. "You're still here," he said, relief clear in his voice. "Did you think I'd leave? I thought you might come to your senses." He sat across from her. "Seraphine told me she spoke to you. I apologize if she frightened you. She told me about Elena." His expression shuddered. "I see. I'm sorry for what happened to her, for what you went through. It was a long time ago. Not long enough, clearly." Bridget set down the book. "Lucien, I understand the risks. But I need you to understand something too. I'm not looking for you to protect me from the world. I'm looking for a partner, someone to face things with. If we do this, we do it as equals." He smiled faintly. "You're human. I'm a 1,000-year-old vampire king. We're not equals." "Yes, we are. You have power and immortality and strength. I have courage and compassion and the ability to see you as a person instead of a king. That's worth something." He crossed to her, kneeling beside her chair so they were eye level. "You're right. It's worth everything. But I need you to let me protect you. It's part of who I am. If something happened to you because I was careless, it would destroy me." She touched his face, the gesture already becoming familiar. "Then we protect each other. Deal?" "Deal." He leaned in and kissed her, and it was different from the parking garage. Deeper, more certain. full of promise and possibility, and the beginning of something that felt inevitable. The next weeks were a blur. Bridget continued working. She needed to maintain her human life, her independence, but she spent every evening in Lucien's world. He courted her properly, old-fashioned and romantic. Dinners in candlelit chambers, walks through underground gardens, conversations that lasted until dawn. He introduced her to his court formally, presenting her as his companion under his protection. The vampires bowed and swore oaths, but she saw calculation in their eyes. They were waiting to see if she was temporary or permanent, waiting to see if their king was serious. She met his inner circle Seraphine, who warmed to her slowly. Dante, his military commander, who was gruff but loyal. Isolde, his chancellor, who managed the political complexities of vampire society. They tested her, pushed her, tried to understand what their king saw in this mortal woman. "She's brave," Seraphine said one evening when she thought Bridget couldn't hear. "And she doesn't bow to him. He needs that." "She's a liability," Isolde countered. "Mortal, fragile. She'll be dead in 60 years and he'll be broken. Or she'll save him," Dante said. "He's been dead inside for centuries. She's making him live again. That's worth any risk." Bridget also started mending her relationship with her sister. She called Rebecca, who was shocked to hear from her. They met for coffee, awkward at first, but then Rebecca asked about her life. And Bridget found herself talking not about vampires, but about feeling happier, feeling alive. "You're different," Rebecca said, lighter. "Did you meet someone?" "Yeah, I did. Tell me about him." Bridget smiled. "He's complicated and intense, and he makes me feel like I'm finally living instead of just existing." "Then I'm happy for you. I've missed you, Brie. I've missed you too. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. At work, she got the promotion. She should have been thrilled, but the achievement felt hollow. The corporate ladder she'd been climbing didn't matter as much anymore. Lucien asked her what she wanted, really wanted. "I don't know," she admitted. "I thought I wanted success, recognition. But now I think I just want to matter, to make a difference." He thought for a moment. "What if you worked for me? For the court? Doing what?" "We need someone to manage our human relations. We have suppliers, allies, people who know our secret, but we handle it poorly, through intimidation and money. You could build real relationships, make it sustainable. Use your skills for something that actually matters." It was tempting. Terrifying, but tempting. "Let me think about it," she said. He kissed her temple. "Take all the time you need." But time became a luxury they didn't have. The attack came on a Tuesday night. Bridget was in Lucien's chambers, reading while he worked through a stack of political correspondence. When alarms shrieked through the castle, Lucien was on his feet instantly. "Stay here. Lock the door behind me." "What's happening?" "Intruders. Someone's breached the outer defenses." He grabbed a sword from the wall, an actual sword, ancient and lethal, and headed for the door. "Lucien, stay here, please." The fear in his eyes was real. "I can't protect you and fight them. I need to know you're safe." She nodded. And he was gone. Bridget locked the door and backed away from it, her heart hammering. She could hear sounds now, shouts, the clash of metal, inhuman screams. The castle was under attack. She waited, helpless, for what felt like hours but was probably minutes. Then the door shook, someone pounding on it from outside. "Bridget, open the door!" Lucien's voice, urgent. She rushed to unlock it. He was standing there, covered in blood, not his. She realized with relief he was unharmed, and his eyes were wild. "We need to move now. They're targeting you specifically." "What? Why?" "Later, now we run." He grabbed her hand and pulled her into the hall. She saw bodies, vampire bodies, ash and blood. Saw Dante fighting 3 vampires at once, his movements a blur of violence. Saw Seraphine, her face twisted in fury, ripping the heart from a female vampire's chest. "This way," Lucien said, pulling her down a side passage. They ran through corridors she'd never seen, going deeper into the castle. Behind them she heard pursuit footsteps, voices shouting in languages she didn't recognize. Lucien pulled her into a small chamber and locked the door behind them. It was clearly a safe room, no windows, reinforced walls, weapons on every surface. "Who's attacking us?" Bridget asked, trying to catch her breath. "The Western Kingdom, King Mordecai. He's been looking for an excuse to challenge my rule for decades." "You gave him one, me?" "A human companion is seen as weakness, proof that I'm compromised. He's using it to justify an attack, to claim I'm unfit to rule." Lucien paced, sword still in hand. "I should have seen this coming. Should have been more careful. This isn't your fault." "Yes, it is. I knew the risks and I pursued you anyway because I was selfish. Because I wanted something for myself for once instead of always sacrificing for duty." "Lucien, if they capture you, they'll use you against me. Force me to abdicate. Or kill you to prove their point. Either way, I lose you, and I can't." His voice broke. "I can't lose you." Bridget crossed to him, took his face in both hands. "Listen to me. We're going to survive this. Together, what do we need to do? He took a shuddering breath. End the war before it truly starts. I need to face Mordecai. Defeat him in single combat. It's the old way, but it's binding. If I win, his forces have to stand down. And if you lose, I won't lose. I can't. But if you do, then you run. Seraphine will get you out, get you somewhere safe. I've already given her instructions. I'm not leaving you, Bridget. No, we're in this together, remember? Partners. Equals. I'm not running while you fight for us. He stared at her, then pulled her into a fierce kiss. I love you. I should have said it before. I love you more than I've loved anything in 1,000 years. I love you too. Now let's go win a war. The challenge was issued in the Great Hall, a massive chamber at the heart of the castle. Mordecai was there, a vampire who looked carved from ice-white hair, white skin, eyes like chips of diamond. He was surrounded by his forces, dozens of vampires who'd breached the castle's defenses. Lucien's court was there too, bloodied but standing. Dante, Seraphine, Isolde, and others. They formed a protective circle around Bridget. Lucien Drakovar, Mordecai said, his voice cold and precise. You've grown weak. A human pet? The mighty vampire king brought low by mortal attachment. You're not fit to rule. I'll give you one chance to withdraw, Lucien said calmly. Leave now and I'll pretend this attack never happened. Stay and I'll scatter your ashes to the wind. Mordecai laughed. Bold words, but can you back them up? I challenge you, Drakovar. Single combat, the old law. Winner takes all accepted. The crowd drew back, forming a circle. Bridget tried to move forward, but Seraphine held her back. Don't, the ancient vampire whispered. This is his fight. Distracting him could get him killed. So Bridget watched, her heart in her throat, as the two vampire kings faced each other. They were both ancient, both powerful. But Mordecai was fresh, fed, prepared. Lucien was still recovering from the starving state she'd met him in, and he'd just fought through an attack on his castle. The fight was brutal. They moved faster than her eyes could fully follow, blurs of violence and power. Swords clashed, bodies slammed into stone hard enough to crack it. Lucien was incredible, graceful, and deadly, every movement precise. But Mordecai was relentless, blood spilled. Lucien's blood. He was wounded, a slash across his ribs, another on his shoulder. Mordecai was pushing him back, gaining ground. Bridget couldn't stand it. Despite Seraphine's grip, she broke free and ran forward. Lucien, he glanced at her for just a split second, but it was enough. Mordecai's sword drove toward his heart. Time seemed to slow. Lucien twisted impossibly fast, and the blade that should have killed him instead drove into his side. He roared, grabbed Mordecai's sword arm, and with a sickening crack, tore it off at the shoulder. Mordecai screamed. Black blood poured from the wound. Lucien didn't hesitate. He drove his own sword through Mordecai's chest, pinning him to the floor, then reached into the wound and ripped out his heart. The Western king crumbled to ash. Silence fell over the hall. Lucien stood, breathing hard, clutching his side where Mordecai's sword had pierced him. He looked at the Western vampires. Anyone else want to challenge my rule? One by one they knelt. We submit to the vampire king of the Eastern Territories, their leader said. The challenge is satisfied. The Western kingdom yields. Lucien nodded, swaying slightly. Then go, take your dead and go. They fled and Lucien collapsed. Bridget was at his side instantly, Dante helping her support him. How bad is it? I'll live, Lucien gritted out. It missed everything vital. I just need blood and time. They carried him to his chambers. Mira brought blood, bags and bags of it, and Lucien drank while Bridget held his hand. She could see the wound slowly closing, his body knitting itself back together. You scared me, she said quietly when they were alone. I scared myself. He pulled her down beside him on the bed. When I saw you run forward, when I thought he might hurt you, I've never been that terrified. I'm sorry. I just couldn't stand watching you fight alone. I'm never alone, not anymore. You're with me. Even when you're not physically there, you're with me. He touched her face. The court knows it now. They saw me fight for you, saw me willing to die for you. You're not just my companion anymore, you're my queen if you'll have me. Bridget's breath caught. Queen? Lucien, I'm human. I don't know how to be a vampire, queen. You'll learn, we'll figure it out together. Unless you don't want this, I'd understand. Tonight showed you how dangerous my world is. She thought about it. Really thought this life would be complicated, dangerous, nothing like what she'd planned. But it would be real, full of purpose and passion and love. Yes, she said. I want this. I want you. I want to be your queen and your partner and everything in between. His smile was blinding. Then there's one more thing we need to discuss. What? The turning. Making you like me. Immortal. She'd been expecting this. I thought you said it was dangerous. It is. But I'm powerful and I've successfully turned 3 people in my long life. The odds would be in your favor, and it would mean eternity together. What happens if it fails? You die. Painfully. She flinched. And if it succeeds, you become vampire. Immortal, powerful, bound to me in ways that go beyond mortal marriage. We'd be mates, connected on a level humans can't comprehend. You'd share my strength, my kingdom, my very existence. What about the sun? Blood? All of it? All of it. You'd have to give up daylight, regular food, your human life. But you'd gain so much more. It was an impossible choice. Death or immortality. Humanity or vampirism. Her old life or a new existence at Lucien's side. I need time to think about it, she said. Take all the time you need. I'll love you whether you're human or vampire, whether we have 50 years or 50,000. She kissed him. Let's start with right now and see where it goes. The weeks that followed were peaceful. Lucien's victory over Mordecai had solidified his rule. The Western Kingdom was absorbed into his territories, doubling his realm. He was more powerful than ever, and the vampire world knew it. Bridget took the job he'd offered, managing human relations for the court. She was good at it, building trust, creating systems, treating the human suppliers and allies with respect instead of fear. Within a month, she'd streamlined operations and improved relations across the board. She also formally reconciled with Rebecca, even introducing her sister to parts of her new life, not the vampire parts, but the parts about finding love and purpose. Rebecca was happy for her, even if she didn't understand all the changes. And Bridget thought about the turning. About immortality, Lucien never pressured her. He answered her questions honestly. Introduced her to the 3 vampires he'd turned, all of whom had survived and thrived. He showed her what her life would be like, the good and the bad. I won't lie to you, he said one night as they lay together in his massive bed. Being vampire is hard, the hunger is constant, the loneliness can be crushing. Watching the mortal world change and leave you behind is painful. But you'd have me, always. And that makes everything bearable. What if I stay human? She asked. What happens in 50 years when I'm old and you still look like this? I'll love you, take care of you, be grateful for every moment we had. And when you die, I'll grieve for a very long time. But I'd have known real love, real connection. That's more than most of my kind ever experience. She rolled over to face him. And if I choose immortality, then we rule together, face eternity side by side, build something lasting, maybe even have a family. It's rare, but ancient vampires can sometimes reproduce. We could have centuries to try. The idea of children, vampire children, was strange but not unwelcome. She'd never thought much about kids, but with Lucien, with Forever, it felt possible. She made her decision 3 months after the attack. They were in the underground gardens, walking among flowers that bloomed without sunlight. Lucien was telling her about a treaty negotiation with the Southern Territories, and she stopped him mid-sentence. Turn me. He stared at her. What? I want you to turn me, make me vampire. I've thought about it from every angle, and this is what I want. Eternity with you, the chance to build something that matters. I want all of it. Bridget, are you sure? Once it's done, there's no going back. I'm sure. I've never been more sure of anything. He pulled her into his arms, held her so tight she could barely breathe. When? Now, tonight. Before I lose my nerve. The turning was done in his private chambers, with only Seraphine present as witness. Lucien explained the process. He would drain her to the point of death, then feed her his blood. Her body would die and be reborn as vampire. It will hurt, he warned, more than you can imagine. But I'll be with you the entire time, and when you wake, you'll be mine forever. She lay on the bed, and he knelt beside her. Last chance to change your mind. I'm not changing my mind. I love you, do it. He kissed her, soft and sweet. Then his fangs extended and he bit down on her throat. The sensation was overwhelming, pain and pleasure mixed, her blood rushing out, her heart racing then slowing. She could feel herself dying, feel the world dimming. But Lucien's voice was in her ear, steady and sure. Stay with me just a little more. You're doing beautifully. Then he bit his own wrist and pressed it to her lips. Drink. His blood tasted like power and darkness and eternity. She drank, and it burned going down, liquid fire in her veins. Her body convulsed, every nerve screaming. She would have cried out, but his blood filled her mouth. That's it. Take it all. Come back to me. The pain peaked unbearable, and then she died. She woke 3 days later. The world was different. Sharper, brighter. She could hear everything, Lucien's breathing beside her, footsteps in the hall outside, conversations happening floors away. She could smell blood, human and vampire, could track individual scents through the castle, and she was strong. She sat up, and the movement was effortless, graceful in a way she'd never been before. Lucien was there instantly, taking her hands. How do you feel? She looked at him and saw him truly for the first time. Saw the power in him, the age, the love. Incredible. Hungry. Different. The hunger will be intense at first. We'll manage it together. He taught her to feed, bringing her willing donors who knew what she was. The first taste of human blood was transcendent, everything Lucien had said it would be. Power and life and connection. He taught her to use her new strength, to move with vampire speed, to fight. Turned out she was a natural, her human determination translating well to vampire ferocity. Seraphine taught her court politics, how to navigate vampire society. Dante taught her strategy. Isolde taught her the laws and traditions. And Lucien taught her what it meant to be his mate. The bond between them was overwhelming. She could feel him now, sense his emotions, his presence. Even when they were apart, she knew where he was, knew he was safe. And he could feel her too, their connection deep and unbreakable. They were formally bonded in a vampire ceremony, ancient and beautiful. The entire court witnessed as they exchanged blood and vows, binding themselves for eternity. I, Lucien Drakovar, vampire king of the Eastern and Western territories, take you, Bridget Crawford, as my mate and queen. From this night until the stars burn out, you are mine and I am yours. I, Bridget Crawford, take you, Lucien Drakovar, as my mate and king. From this night until eternity ends, you are mine and I am yours. When they kissed, the bond snapped into place fully, and Bridget felt complete in a way she never had before. The years that followed were everything she'd dreamed. They ruled together, Lucien handling military and traditional matters, Bridget revolutionizing their human relations and bringing fresh perspective to vampire society. She was beloved by the court, respected even by those who'd initially doubted her. They traveled the world together, Bridget finally seeing all the places she'd dreamed of. They attended vampire courts in Asia, Africa, Europe, building alliances and friendships, and they loved each other with an intensity that never faded. Every night was new, every conversation a discovery. The connection between them deepened until Bridget couldn't imagine existence without him. 20 years after the turning, she got pregnant. It was rare, nearly impossible, but it happened. A vampire child, growing inside her. Lucien was ecstatic and terrified in equal measure. Vampire births are dangerous, he warned. For you and the child, we'll manage, Bridget said, her hand on her still flat stomach. Together. 9 months later, she gave birth to a daughter. The labor was brutal, even for a vampire, but when Bridget held her baby girl, pale and perfect, with silver eyes like her father, every moment of pain was worth it. They named her Elena, after the woman Lucien had lost, honoring the past while celebrating the future. Elena was a miracle. Half vampire, half whatever Bridget's human soul had added to the mix. She grew faster than human children but slower than full vampires. She was powerful, intelligent, beautiful. She was loved. 50 years after that night in the elevator, Bridget stood in the gardens with Lucien, watching Elena spar with Dante, her movements graceful and deadly. She's remarkable, Lucien said, his arm around Bridget's waist. She gets it from her father, Bridget said, leaning into him. And her mother, you've changed our world, you know, made it better, more human, more hopeful. Bridget thought about the woman she'd been lonely, lost, going through the motions of a life that didn't fit. That woman had stepped into an elevator at midnight and met a starving vampire king. She could have died that night. Should have, by all logic. Instead, she'd found love, purpose, a family, a kingdom, eternity. No regrets, Lucien asked, as if reading her thoughts. Not a single one, you? He kissed her temple. Only that I didn't meet you 1,000 years sooner. We have forever now, that's enough. Yes, he agreed, pulling her closer as their daughter's laughter rang out through the underground gardens. Forever is more than enough. And in the castle beneath the city, the vampire king and his queen lived exactly that, forever. Together, their love defying death and time and every law of nature. The elevator had stalled between floors at midnight, trapping them together in what should have been disaster. Instead, it had been destiny.